Don Lemon. It's just a little past 11 here on the East Coast, and we are live with the very latest on a pretty terrible week for President Trump. The president spent this week attacking hardworking men who were peacefully and legally standing up for what they believed in by calling them sons of bitches and trying to turn their fellow Americans against them by purposely changing the narrative, pitting patriots on the football field against patriots on the battlefield, all while shamelessly using the flag and race as cudgels. A stunning lack of leadership. Leadership, something that has been lacking from the top. Real leaders seek to bring people together. Real leaders don't drive divisions for their own self-aggrandizement. Real leaders seek to lower the temperature and elevate thinking and awareness. And I really hope the president is watching tonight, as well as his supporters. Because one leader, one real leader, is a superintendent of the U.S. Air Force Academy, Lieutenant General Jay Silveria. Silveria gathered more than 5,000 students, staff, and Air Force officers of the 10th Air Base Wing in Colorado Springs after some cowards wrote racist slurs on a message board at the Academy's prep school. This is the kind of message that President Trump should be sending to America. Listen.
You may have heard that some people down in the prep school wrote some racial slurs on some message boards. If you haven't heard that, I wanted you to hear it from me. If you're outraged by those words, then you're in the right place. That kind of behavior has no place at the prep school, it has no place at USAFA, and it has no place in the United States Air Force. You should be outraged not only as an airman, but as a human being. And I'll tell you that the appropriate response for horrible language and horrible ideas, the appropriate response is a better idea. So that's why I'm here. Some of you may think that that happened down in the prep school and doesn't apply to us. I would be naive, and we would all be naive to think that everything is perfect here. We would be naive to think that we shouldn't discuss this topic. We would also be tone deaf not to think about the backdrop of what's going on in our country. Things like Charlottesville and Ferguson, the protests in the NFL. That's why we have a better idea. One of those ideas, the dean brought people together to discuss Charlottesville. Because what we should have is a civil discourse and talk about these issues. That's a better idea. We received outstanding feedback from that session at Charlottesville. But I also have a better idea, and it's about our diversity. And it's the power of the diversity, the power of the 4,000 of you and all of the people that are on the staff tower and lining the glass, the power of us as a diverse group. The power that we come from all walks of life, that we come from all parts of this country, that we come from all races, we come from all backgrounds, gender, all makeup, all upbringing. The power of that diversity comes together and makes us that much more powerful. That's a much better idea than small thinking and horrible ideas. We have an opportunity here, 5,500 people in this room, to think about what we are as an institution. This is our institution, and no one can take away our values. No one can write on a board and question our values. No one can take that away from us. So just in case you're unclear on where I stand on this topic, I want to leave you with my most important thought today. If you can't treat someone with dignity and respect, then you need to get out. If you can't treat someone from another gender, whether that's a man or a woman, with dignity and respect, then you need to get out. If you demean someone in any way, then you need to get out. And if you can't treat someone from another race or a different color skin with dignity and respect, then you need to get out. Reach for your phones. I'm serious. Reach for your phones. Okay, you don't have to reach for your phones. I'm going to give you an opportunity to reach for your phones. Grab your phones. I want you to videotape this so that you have it, so that you can use it. So that we all have the moral courage together. All of us on the staff tower, lining the glass, all of us in this room. This is our institution. And if you need it, and you need my words, then you keep these words. And you use them, and you remember them, and you share them, and you talk about them. If you can't treat someone with dignity and respect, then get out.
That's how you do it. I couldn't turn away from the general's words. No one should. They are a stark reminder of everything our president is not saying. The general knows there aren't many sides to racism. He knows people who protest inequality are not sons of bitches. The president should be ashamed of himself for dividing America when he could be bringing us together, dragging the country down instead of lifting us up. We need a leader. And that general, that speech, that's what a leader sounds like. That's what a leader looks like. I want to bring in now CNN political commentators David Swerdlick, Van Jones, and Scott Jennings. I must have watched that 10 times today, gentlemen. And I want all of you to get your reaction to this. I'm going to start with you, David.
Sure, Don. So I took away two things from the general's remarks. One was that the message can be very simple. If you can't treat someone with respect, you're in the wrong place. That's boiling down a lot of complex issues to a very, very basic concept. The second thing is ownership. The general didn't wait for this attack, this verbal attack or this racist graffiti to boil over into a national controversy before he took action. Something happened on his campus. He's responsible. He came out, made a statement, didn't issue a press release, didn't go through a spokesperson, wanted people to see him addressing it himself and nip it in the bud. I think those are two important things. And as you said, they demonstrate leadership on his part.
Van?
I think it's also important to recognize that they have been proactive. They didn't wait for the incident. They had already been working on it. They had built up some muscle and some resilience in a conversation. So then when something happened, possibly some backlash or nobody really knows, there was already a pre-existing conversation there that was robust enough to be able to, now you're underscoring a point. You aren't raising this for the very first time. And that's also so important. And I think, I hope that other adults are taking advantage of this moment in history to have these conversations with young people so that we can continue to have some real progress. You don't have to have leadership at the White House level. You can have leadership throughout society and make up for it. But I think it's just a crying shame you don't have this kind of leadership from the president.
Scott?
I like that he was making it clear that the power of the U.S. military, at least in part, is that it reflects America. You know, we're a diverse country. We have people from all walks of life, all different colors, all different creeds and geography, and we share some things, but we have a lot of diversity, and that's all reflected in the U.S. military, and he counts that as a real piece of the military power. And so I was glad to see him making that point that our national defense reflects all of us, and I think that's a great message for him to instill in those cadets at the academy.
Mm-hmm. I just want you guys to listen to me. You heard the general there. Now listen to how this got started.
Wouldn't you love to see one of these NFL owners, when somebody disrespects our flag, to say, get that son of a bitch off the field right now, out, he's fired. He's fired!
I mean, that is it's a stark difference, isn't it? I mean, Van, does it matter? I wonder if the president, if he doesn't have people at the White House who are advising him, you know, how to deal with these particular situations, deal against handling these, saying these controversial things, or you think it doesn't even matter?
You know, you shouldn't have to have a team of advisors to tell you not to call somebody a son of a bitch. You know, I would love for the mothers of the NFL to go to the White House and stand outside and ask, which one of us are you calling a bitch, Mr. President? Come out here and explain it to our faces, because he wouldn't do it. That's beneath the office of the president. it's beneath the conduct we expect from grade school children. And, it's great for his crowd, it's great for his base. But when you listen, Obama had to face Kaepernick too. Don't forget. And Obama was questioned, hey, do you support this? Are you for this? And Obama was very clear. He didn't favor that style of protest. But the way that he talked about it, he also said, hey, listen, I want Kaepernick to listen to the veterans and others who are insulted and offended. And I also want the people who are offended to listen to Kaepernick because he's pointing to some things that are important. He tried to create some dialogue, Obama did, even though he was clear he didn't actually like what Kaepernick was doing. Right. So you can say, and Trump is within his right to say, I don't like that kind of talk. I don't like that demonstration. But you can do it in a way that creates more dialogue and not more division.
I don't like that demonstration, but perhaps he has a point that all of us as Americans should be listening to. And we won't know it unless we have a dialogue. It's very simple. I mean, Scott, I think most people would like to see the president talk about these issues in a way that is uniting. It seems like the president can't see past the 30 or 40% of Americans in his base. But if he tried uniting the country, he could gain so many more. Why doesn't he see that, or why doesn't he want to do that?
Well, I think the president sees this NFL protest issue much differently. And frankly, the polling sort of backs up where his sentiments are. I think people are uncomfortable with how far he went in calling for the firing of the players. But the sentiment of not approving of people kneeling during the national anthem, public opinion's on the president's side. The CNN poll out today bears that out. Fox News has a poll, YouGov, Reuters, Ipsos, Remington. And, there's been 6 or 7 national surveys that indicate more Americans agree with the president's sentiment. But of course, it also says that Americans don't like that he went so far as to call for the players firing. But this is what he does. He finds these cultural issues. And he tries to insert himself because this is what he thinks he needs to do to remind people that, hey, I understand you, I have empathy for your emotions, and I'm one of you. And this is the latest example. It won't be the last. He does this every few weeks.
Yeah. We'll continue this discussion. Yeah, we'll continue. We have to take a break. I promise you. We'll be right back. So we're back now with my panel. I want to bring them back in. Scott Jennings, Van Jones, and David Swerdlick. So Scott, I read those numbers differently than you read them because it shows that I think that most people think that the players have the right to do it. They have the right, that they're doing the right thing, or that they have the right to do it, not that they're doing the right thing. But I think that I read that differently, that poll differently than you did. And Van, I'm not sure if that's what you wanted to comment on.
Well, what I want to say is that what's surprising, it's not surprising that the majority of Americans look down on this protest. If you look at the 1960s, 1963, 67, 70% of white Americans said, hey, stop this black protesting, these freedom rides, or you're hurting your cause, the sit-in movement, you're hurting your cause, cut it out, it's bad. Huge numbers of white people in the 60s with Dr. King said, stop these black protests. So when you look at these numbers, these are some of the most popular black protests in American history. If you look at contextually, what these NFL players are doing are some of the most popular protests in American history with white folks because, in general, the white public has not liked to see black folks protesting. So I see it differently.
Yeah, I see it differently because everyone, listen, when it's taking the knee, usually that's in reverence. But I think everyone, even the player I had on, Michael Thomas of the Miami Dolphins, said to me the other night, he said, everybody would like to stand. I think most people would like to stand. What the issue is that in that poll, 60% of Americans think that Donald Trump did the wrong thing, President Trump did the wrong thing by criticizing the athletes. That doesn't necessarily mean that they agree with what they did, but they think that he should not have inserted himself. So if you're asking someone, should you stand up for the flag? Of course they're going to say you should stand up for the flag. But if you're asking him if he did the right thing by calling them sons of bitches and saying that they should be fired, or if he should have inserted himself, the majority of people are saying, no, he should not have done that. Van was talking to you because I interrupted you.
Well, listen, I mean, Donald Trump is he never misses the opportunity to miss an opportunity. So here's an issue where his concern about it is in line with public opinion, but the way that he deals with it is actually, puts him in a super minority in terms of people who are able to somehow bring themselves to support his language and his demeanor. But I just want to say this as clearly as I can say it. In this country, African Americans, no matter what we do, when we sit in, when we freedom ride, when we kneel in, whatever it is, the initial response from the public tends to be overwhelmingly negative. Because basically we're kind of raining on folks' parades. We don't want to hear this stuff. Please just, get off my screen with it. And yet, as time goes on, the Muhammad Alis and all those people who raise those issues then become heroes. The Dr. Kings, the Ella Jo Bakers, the Fannie Lou Hamers then become heroes later. Mm-hmm. They're never heroes in the moment. Yeah. They're heroes later on when people reflect on the courage they showed and the issues that they raised. Yeah. And that's really where we are. Colin Kaepernick, as the years go on, will be a more and more revered figure, and frankly, Donald Trump is in danger of being a more and more reviled figure as the years go on.
Another message, David, from the president seems to be that he gets to define what patriotism is and who is patriotic.
No, that's right, Don, and I think he's made a mistake here, kind of along the lines of what Van is saying, by casting his view in the way that he did. Mm-hmm. There was a point, not just a week ago, where the owners and management in the NFL were a lot closer to the position of the president. By castigating the players in this way, he has driven the owners closer to the players because they've, I think, been able to see that, okay, now when you have the players versus the president of the United States, you can see more clearly what the players are trying to do. The players have said, Colin Kaepernick has said, his former teammate Eric Reed said in the New York Times this week that they chose kneeling specifically because they wanted to do a protest in the most respectful way possible. They didn't stay in the locker room. They didn't turn their backs on the flag. They came out for the anthem, but knelt to underscore what is the underlying issue here, which is police violence and the tension between communities of color and police. If I could just say, yeah, no, go ahead.
And not to rush you guys along because I want to get to two things. But Scott, I want to ask, why do we play the national anthem at a ball game anyway? Like, why is that such a big deal?
We play it at a lot of events. I view it as one of those rituals that we all go through together that reminds us that we're all in this together. We're all Americans, and we're all in this American experiment together. And I think
we know we're in America.
But there's an important set of rituals we go through that sort of give us that every now and then reminder that, hey, we're all Americans, and what does it mean to be an American? Well, it means we're all in this country together, and we're all fighting for the same thing, the same freedom, the same liberty. And I think when people see what they perceive as disrespect of those rituals, they have a visceral reaction. Trump has a visceral reaction. A lot of his supporters do. According to the CNN poll, 90% of his supporters had the same reaction that he did. So there's a significant population in this country that don't like to see people disrespecting the rituals that remind us that, hey, despite our differences, we are all in this together.
That's been my whole point, is that this president has had the chance to elevate and educate and for people to realize that just by draping yourself in the flag is not necessarily patriotism. That is just a ritual, and rituals can be hollow. Van, I have to ask you, when you step back and you think about all the president has said about the NFL players, and I know that you have used this term before, I'd have to ask you, do you think that this is a white lash against the players and their supporters, that's what has resulted here?
Well, I think what you have to look, if you take a big step back, there's something happening throughout the West where this politics of resentment, this politics of kind of finding these either dog whistle or louder than dog whistle issues is becoming a part of a playbook for a certain set of politicians. You saw that happening in Germany. You had some very far-right people who made it into parliament in Germany, playing us against each other. And I think the President of the United States is all too often guilty of those same kinds of tactics. I think that we've kind of lost the plot here. Those NFL players, the African American ones, they say, well, they're rich. They should just be grateful. They shouldn't complain. Rich celebrities shouldn't complain. Well, Donald Trump is a rich celebrity, and he's been complaining
all the time.
All the time. So it should be. Apparently, it's okay to be a rich celebrity and complain. Ask the president. That's how he got where he is. Yeah. And then they say, well, they shouldn't raise these issues. Don't forget, a lot of these guys are 2 or 3 years out of the hood. Their families still live there. They're getting text messages from cousins. They go home for Thanksgiving to neighborhoods where if it was your neighborhood or my neighborhood or Donald Trump's neighborhood, they would be screaming and yelling. We would be screaming and yelling. Something is going terribly wrong between the street violence and the police violence. Too much violence, too many funerals. So these young people are doing a good thing for America to raise these issues.
Don, can I jump in?
I've got to go. If you can do it in 5 seconds, because I'm going to get creamed.
It should go without saying, but African Americans love this country. We love this country, but it's not unpatriotic to say, country, do better when it comes to these issues.
Well, and people who say that you shouldn't protest on the job, there have been a lot of people who have protested on the job. And you think about the woman who wouldn't give the marriage license in Kentucky, and you think about Judge Roy Moore protested on the job, and he's just been now in a runoff and could be the next senator of Alabama. A lot of people protest on the job, but don't get the backlash that these guys have gotten. Thank you, everyone. Have a great weekend.
Thanks, Don.
We'll be right back.